Here we go. What is going on, Cover One crew? Welcome back to the show. Hope everybody's doing great out there as always. We got a good one today because we're continuing down the path of fantasy football 2023 season. And we're talking my guy, Chris Olave. He is a can't-miss product this season. I have no doubt. I was beating the drum for Olave coming out of Ohio State in his rookie season. Knew he was going to hit the stage and he was going to challenge, more than challenge, a Garrett Wilson, where a lot of people said it was Wilson over Olave, and they finished very, very similarly when it came to fantasy football point productivity. We got some good stuff to talk about Chris Olave because to me, 2023 is definitely a can't-miss season campaign for my guy, Chris Olave. Let's start with last year's stats, man. 119 targets, 72 receptions, 1042 in yards, and 4 receiving touchdowns. He finished as a wide receiver 25 in 15 games. So if he played 2 more games, you know that stat line was going to increase that much more. 162.2 fantasy points on the season, but he did have to deal with a rotational quarterback room between Andy Dalton, Jameis Winston, Taysom Hill, and you see the point or the productivity that these quarterbacks did not really, support the fact, honestly, even with the depth chart, no Michael Thomas. We saw, injuries galore through this wide receiver room. Some guys stepped up, some guys now left via free agency. But there is a new sheriff in town, and that is the exciting aspect that we got to discuss, is that Derek Carr is now a New Orleans Saint. Big ups now we can potentially see in this offense. I was never a Jameis Winston naysayer. I was hoping he was going to get his shot, but they continue to go down the path with Andy Dalton, and I still don't understand what the hell they were thinking, okay? It's in the history books now. We're in the past. Now we got Derek Carr. This is the future. What is Derek Carr? Yes, okay. Is he an elite level quarterback? We can say probably not. But is he good enough to support an offense that has a multitude of weapons? Abso-freaking-lutely, man. Last year's stats in 15 games, Derek Carr went 35, 22, 24 touchdowns and 14 interceptions, and then he basically was shut down and then requested the trade thereafter. Comparing that to Andy Dalton, to Jameis Winston, to Taysom Hill, the statistics are very similar indeed. And you put him now in a new situation where he is going to feel revitalized. The Saints offense still is, relatively pass happy, and I think Derek Carr is going to be able to showcase that talent with the New Orleans Saints on a weekly basis, especially if we do understand what's going to happen with an Alvin Kamara. They did draft Kendre Miller, so it's going to be an interesting backfield nonetheless. But Derek Carr overall, 24 TDs, 4,000 yards. We're going to say maybe 30 TDs, 4,000 yards is definitely not out of the realm of possibilities for a Derek Carr with the New Orleans Saints. But we got to discuss consistency rates. And I told y'all, man, I've been in the books and I've been doing all the statistics. Consistency rates are massive. I do like points, total points for and average points per game. That does not tell the whole story, because what you see with total points for, how many players blow up in like 5 games and they shut down for the rest of them. So that's the biggest problem that I do have. Consistency rates when we're discussing, say, a Chris Olave versus a Davante Adams. And why not? Because Derek Carr is coming from those Las Vegas Raiders. It's a great, comparison for consistency trait. Fantasy football boom games for Chris Olave, 46.7%. Almost 50% of the time last season, Chris Olave gave you over the 10-point threshold, half PPR points. That is a good sign. It is going to be a good sign moving forward with a Derek Carr, absolutely. Touchdown rate, not so good. He only scored 4 touchdowns, 26.7% was his TD rate in consistency. It's not great. You want to see that number rise just a little bit more. The 6 to 8 touchdowns is kind of where you're looking for in that consistency rate. Did not match that at this point. Yards rate is 60% for Chris Olave. Very good in his rookie season, and I only expect this to continue to move up the ranks that much more. Receiving rate, PPR upside. Chris Olave was doing the business for y'all, man. 80% rate for the receiving upside rate for PPR upside for Chris Olave. It's definitely there, but when you're talking, how does he compare to the wide receiver 2 and Davante Adams this past year? Fantasy football boom rate for an Adams was only 64.7, and y'all are going to say, well, how the hell did he make it to wide receiver 2? He scored majority of his points, 172 points in only 7 contests, man. The latter 10 contests, Davante Adams only scored 62 points. So you're going to understand what I'm saying. Total points does not tell the whole story, and it is consistency rates that you should be looking for the longevity of the 17 games. That is the most important aspect, where Chris Olave only played 15, so you see the numbers are still there in favor of Chris Olave moving up in the right direction for this upcoming season. TD rate for Davante Adams, 53%. Very good. That's where we want to see Chris Olave. Will he end up getting there? We'll see, but I mean, 53 is a good rate. Yards rate, 71% for Adams, and his reception rate also at 70.5. So Davante Adams was uber consistent, obviously, when the games that he did hit, but he did leave a lot on the field for y'all as you really required him in those 10 contests. Only 61 points was no bueno, because you want to see average points is going to tell you what he scored 17 points per game does not match consistency rates, and this is what crippled your fantasy team at times when those consistency rates are not there. So Chris Olave right now in his rookie season, you got to give him the benefit of the doubt in that as well, that he will increase all of these numbers moving forward into his second season. We're talking Derek Carr some more because it's very important. He's going to be throwing Chris Olave the ball a lot. So when you're talking, you're breaking down the statistics. You got him here on the board. 2022, who was his top target with the Las Vegas Raiders? It was Davante Adams. 180 targets for Adams. Derek Carr, like I said, he only played 15 games, so he didn't throw 180 by himself to Davante. But, I mean, you're talking top target, 180 targets. That's a great news, great sign for Chris Olave coming with Derek Carr. 2021, Hunter Renfrow was the top target. 128 targets. Still beat what Chris Olave got this past year with 119. And in 2020, Derek Carr fed Darren Waller 145 times on the target share. So again, once again Chris Olave's rookie season target share, which is a very big positive. You love to see it. Saints total team targets over the last 3 years. Very important to see. 493 targets in 2022, 474 in 2021, and Drew Brees last year in 2020, 522. That's what you kind of want to see, over the 500 target threshold for these wide receivers. The Raiders with Derek Carr these past 3 seasons, 558, 603 in 2021, and 551 in 2020. So you see, Derek Carr is no stranger to spread the ball around to all of his wide receivers, and with a kind of a meek, you want to say it's meeker, type of wide receiver depth chart for these New Orleans Saints, there is going to be a plethora of targets to move around. With a 3-year average, the Raiders totaled 570 targets for the Saints on the 3-year average, even with a Drew Brees, 496. So that's right in the realm of 74 plus targets that this team should see an influx of with a Derek Carr if we're just taking the averages in respect. We can break down every single player on this depth chart to say, who's going to have targets removed, who's going to have targets inflated, and we're going to definitely see that. But when you're just talking averages alone with a Derek Carr on this offense, you're going to definitely see that potentially anywhere from 75 to 125 targets could potentially be here for the taking, which will increase Chris Olave's number potentially into the 130 mark for target share for these New Orleans Saints this year. But for the depth chart purposes, we understand, Chris Olave has some players he's going to be fighting targets for. His role is definitely on this team. There's no question about that. What is Michael Thomas? We have Michael Thomas, the question marks. Will he come back to fold? Is that ankle and foot going to be repaired to the point that he's going to come back and be the wide receiver 1 on this offense, or is it going to be a 1A, 1B with a Chris Olave? That's the question I do have. Michael Thomas was a beast before he went down with that injury, and then just inconsistency because he couldn't stay healthy was the biggest issue. Michael Thomas, if healthy on the field, still going to be one of the better wide receivers in the NFL, no kidding. And then everyone's going to say, well, the target share is going to go over to a Michael Thomas. Yes, it likely will, but this will increase Chris Olave's efficiency rates because they're going to utilize lesser coverage to his side. All the DB1s likely going to go to Michael Thomas's side, so you got to understand what you're getting here. Even though the target share may go down, efficiency rates will definitely go up, which will absolutely increase Olave's consistency rates. You got Alvin Kamara, who is a big staple in this pass game, always has been since entering the NFL and being with the New Orleans Saints. However, the caveat is his Could he be still suspended? This is the biggest question mark. We do not know. We're going to have to take a value marker on an Alvin Kamara because we don't know. And until we get further notice, we got to say he's on the team right now. He will take some target share away as well because that's what Alvin Kamara definitely does. But if he does get suspended, those targets are going to get freed up. And I believe he had around the 70 to 80 mark for target share alone this past year, if not higher. So you're going to see that target share open up if Alvin Kamara isn't there. Juwan Johnson, he was a big red zone threat. He scored a lot of touchdowns for these Saints, and his role, I think, is going to be, pretty much the same in this offense once again. He proved he could be a mismatch on the field. He is a big body pass catcher, and he definitely is a mismatch versus slower linebackers and slower safety. So he is definitely warranted of his, 65-plus target share in this offense. Shaheed, he came on, a little bit as the season wore on. He's got some good wheels, and he's going to be that deep threat mismatch opportunity in this offense yet again this season. I have no question about that. I think, depending on the other guy, James Washington, newcomer, former Steeler, former Cowboy, come into the mix with the New Orleans Saints. He's going to have some, room that he's got to, impress to keep a roster spot, I got to say. But for Chris Olave, he does not have a whole heck of a lot to beat out because he already is a starting wide receiver on this New Orleans Saints team. Michael Thomas' situation is very interesting. But like I said, I'm not overly concerned and worried because even though he did have 119 targets, and say that even goes down with a Michael Thomas, even though there will be more targets with a Derek Carr, and there could be more influx of targets with Alvin Kamara on suspension, Michael Thomas could take a lion's share of targets from Derek Carr, but Olave's efficiency rates should go through the roof. For me, this is a no-brainer. Right now, he is the wide receiver 14 in ADP, overall 33, so he is going early, but the value is still there for Chris Olave to be that guy. He's got a nose for the end zone. Ohio State in his career, he scored like 35 touchdowns. The man was unstoppable, and now that he's got his feet wet, he's got the ground running with these New Orleans Saints. Get that chemistry building with a Derek Carr, and you're going to see Chris Olave explode on the scene. I am all in, must have, must draft. My guy, CO2, Chris Olave. Like I said, that's my nickname because he was wearing number 2 in Ohio State, and he's going to be always CO2 for me. But nevertheless, as always, don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, jump in those comments, give me your thoughts. What do you guys think of Chris Olave? Value too high for you? Draft placement too high for you? Or are you all in like I am? Because I'm definitely beating the drum for Olave this season. But let me know. Throw them in the comments. But we'll see you next time. I am out.